Oh, hey guys, my name's Zach Stewart. You may recognize me from my mustache. In this topsy-turvy world of super-fast internet, self-driving cars, and a Three Stooges reboot on the way, we always find something to keep our silly little race occupied. Oh gosh, what a hot day it is today. Oh, hey guys, what's cracking?
Hey Zach, I'm just trying to eat this delicious ice cream, but it keeps melting every time I try to lick it.
I'm trying to not get burnt by this harsh sunlight, but I've run out of sunscreen.
I just got this postcard from my pen pal in a remote Pacific island, and our whole island's underwater.
No, guys. If only someone could tell us what's happening!
We can!
I will tell you all about climate change.
And all about how and why it affects China.
Well, wait a second guys, what exactly is climate change?
Well, Oxford Dictionary defines climate change as
a change in global or regional climate patterns. In particular, a change apparent from the mid to late 20th century onwards and attributed largely to the increased levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide produced by the use of fossil fuels.
Oh, damn.
But how is China linked to climate change?
We'll show you.
Who's we?
Let's see. I hope you all have a pen and paper ready, because you're about to receive some knowledge.
who are they?
These are the other members of the stakeholder team representing China at this year's Climate Change Summit.
They look exactly like us.
No, I don't see it.
They're certainly multicultural.
Enough. Knowledge time now.
A question?
Yes?
Isn't China a massive contributor to greenhouse gas emissions?
Yeah, I heard that.
What?
Yeah, I read that factors such as industrial production, increase in population and consumption, and offshoring of raw materials are just some of China's largest contributions to climate change. Research into current and future greenhouse gas emissions show that China's is a sizable component of human-induced climate change.
Well, okay, but...
By observing emissions from the 18th century to 2014, 28% of the world's total annual greenhouse gas emissions were produced by China alone. Assuming China continues along this same path unchanged, by 2030 they are likely to be responsible for over 30% of all global CO2 emissions.
Yeah, well...
I bet you don't have any more information.
It's widely accepted by Chinese specialists that human-induced climate change will have a large visible impact on China. Many experts agree with findings published in several intergovernment panel on climate change assessment reports. For example, the first National Climate Change Assessment Report described climate change after 1950, particularly during the last 20 years, is mainly related to the increase of greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere caused by human activities.
Yeah, well, what do we know?
Isn't freight transport really bad for releasing huge amounts of emissions?
No, not the phrase. We need those.
China's involvement in freight transport has increased over the last few years. This increase in freight activity is causing concerns amongst climate change specialists, who have begun calculating the rise of CO2 emissions in the future. In 2013, emissions due to China's freight transport were approximately 8% of the nation's total greenhouse gas emissions, with 788 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. If China refuses to change its energy consumption, GHG emissions by 2045 will peak at 918 mt CO2e, more than doubling China's 2013 emissions.
Okay, we get it. We're not doing as great as some other countries in our emissions, even at normal national levels compared to other countries. But those are just statements and numbers. What good are your stats without visual representation? Oh no, they have graphs.
Do you know how many different things contribute to carbon emissions in China? For example, in 2005, China emitted 5,101 million tons of carbon dioxide, and now this amount is even higher. That level of emissions was due to different types of coal, petroleum products, kinds of cooking products, and many, many more. As China's pollution increases and the country continues to develop, more Chinese citizens make more money and the need for more energy rises. For example, more coal and oil to meet the demands of modern society. This high energy demand can lead to acid rain and widening the hole in the ozone layer, all due to the high level of emissions they produce.
The graph does look very convincing.
Hey, whose side are you on?
China's emission levels are burdening their development as a country. China has had a big expansion of heavy industry and urbanization in recent years that in turn requires massive amounts of energy. This energy is produced by coal, which of course creates a lot of pollution. Burning coal releases chemicals such as sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide into the atmosphere, affecting not only China but surrounding countries like South Korea and Japan. These chemicals, after being released into the atmosphere, produces deadly acid rain. Much of the air and water in China is polluted, causing the cost of healthcare to skyrocket due to its high demand. This pollution is also responsible for severe water shortages across the country, killing crops and rendering the farmland unusable.
Hey, that one didn't have a graph.
Over the last 30 years, China has grown to be the world's largest emitter of carbon dioxide due to their extreme use of fossil fuels. This graph shows the increase of greenhouse gases in China since 1850. This steep red line represents carbon dioxide produced by burning of fossil fuels. The inset graph shows China's contribution to climate change on a global scale, presenting growth between 1980 and 2010. China is now responsible for 12% of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. However, they do produce 28% of the world's sulfate aerosols, and 24% of the world's nitrate aerosols, and 14% of the world's black carbon aerosols.
What does that even mean?
These aerosols create a cooling effect rather than warming like greenhouse gases. China has had less of an impact to climate change over recent years, but even with this, China's greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise. The contribution of China's emissions to global climate change forcing states that it is still uncertain as to whether China's emission of greenhouse gases will come down in the near future, and the level of China's methane and sulfur dioxide emission levels are also still unknown.
Honestly, it's like you had these facts prepared or something. Okay, we get it. We're certainly not the best at keeping our emissions low. That's for sure.
I'll say,
Hey, that's not needed, okay?
sorry.
Well, it's okay.
But we have several things in place to counteract the emission levels.
Incredibly harmful emission levels.
Yeah, incredibly harmful emission levels.
Don't forget global climate altering incredibly harmful emissions.
Yes, global climate altering, incredibly harmful emissions.
Don't forget
Enough, we get it.
Look, fixing this isn't going to happen straight away. We have put strategies into place enacting specific carbon production goals, and they are intended to be met by 2020. However, through thorough research into the top 5 producers of China's energy, and thus carbon producers, these emission goals are unlikely to be met by the rate of change being implemented now. Current plans contain an ideology of doing their best, in consideration of the massive amount of energy required to cater to a population of over 1 billion people. The possibilities of societal shift to enact environmental change will take more time than has been optimistically proposed by the UN.
We understand that, sure, but what are you going to change?
Other than the climate?
I bet you guys don't have graphs.
Well, rather than a reversion of temperature and precipitation, both affected due to climatic change, Chinese innovation has led to an adaptation of new environmental characteristics in the production of crops. The blending of ideas which are mutually beneficial towards a steadily increasing population allows for goals to be met in the reduction of GHG emissions, goals which are intended to be met without the compromise of other areas of business or enterprise within the Chinese economy.
Intentions are a start. I'll agree to that.
But what other intentions do you have?
Well,
This diagram shows another innovative utilization of progressive natural solutions, which will lead to a cultivation of larger rice crop and duck conservation, as well as a reduction in GHG emissions. The scientific integration of environments to the changing climate is extremely innovative and on the cutting edge of lowering the national average of GHG emissions.
I love ducks.
What else you got?
Well,
the carbon emission trading system was established under the Kyoto Protocol However, voluntary transaction activities outside the Kyoto compliance market are gaining momentum. The Tianjin Climate Exchange, a formal exchange for trading offset credits, was set up in 2009. As part of a state-approved regional development plan, this initiative aims to help local entities, especially the private sector, identify offset opportunities in a market setting. Moreover, in 2009, the volume of voluntary transactions in China not driven by any sort of emission cap was estimated to be 5.2 mt carbon dioxide, second to India's 13.9 mt.
Damn, okay.
Yes, and
Accelerating the transformation of economic development, introduced the policy to guide, strengthen energy conservation and increase efficiency, increase the implementation of energy-saving management, accelerating the development of energy-saving technology, changed from traditional method to market-based energy-saving new mechanism to improve the whole society energy conservation, a wireless to slow down greenhouse gas emissions. By 2010, the energy consumption per unit of gross domestic product is about 20% lower than that in 2005, and the corresponding reduction in carbon dioxide emissions. By continuing to implement the important ecological projects and policies and measures such as afforestation, returning farmland to forest and grassland, nature forest resource protection and farmland capital construction. By 2010, the forest coverage rates will reach 20% and the number of annual carbon sinks will increase about 15 million tons of carbon dioxide.
Where is he getting all of this?
I don't know.
China's 11th five-year plan to build a resource-saving and environment-friendly society as a major strategic task. Proposed in 2010, the energy consumption reduced about 20% than in 2005. In 2006, China used government bonds and central budget to support 111 energy-saving key projects, forming 10.1 million tons of standard coal energy-saving capacity. In 2007, the country used treasury bonds and central budgetary investment and central government funds to support 681 key energy-saving projects to form the energy-saving capacity of 25.5 million tons of standard coal. The local government leads enterprise at all levels of energy-saving technological transformation formed more than 16 million tons of standard coal energy-saving capacity.
Well, okay then.
It sounds like you've really got this sorted.
Wait just a minute, guys. I'm reading something.
Oh God, Kayla, BuzzFeed can wait.
No. Check this out.
What?
China believe that high rates of CO2 emissions produced annually come as a result of years of economic development. However, the Chinese Ministry of Environmental Protection have identified that there are problems in China's climate which are resulting in serious water pollution, as well as smog in many cities.
Adhering to the 12th five-year plan, in which China released that their main concern is the effect climate change will have on their population, they are striving to provide their country with access to clean water, clean air, and safe food. To combat climate change, China will promote minimal energy consumption and hope with this strategic plan that they can begin to use things like natural gas rather than burning coal.
Hold on, are they on our side now?
As well as reducing their emissions, China will also look at reviving coastal areas such as beaches, coastlines and rivers, which can sometimes line residential areas. This policy was put in place to reduce contamination in their sea water and reverse damage which has been done to ecosystems as well as fauna and flora. China have put in place several projects that will fight against marine and ship pollution.
They also hope to make stronger response teams and will strive to respond to emergencies such as oil spills and chemical contamination issues faster in the future. These plans aim to reduce the amount of water pollution already present in China's oceans and rivers. The main objective of this plan and others is to improve the water quality and regulate waste cultivating in their water systems by supervising industrialization and reducing chemical pollution.
I don't know where they're getting this information from.
But I like it.
Many countries, including China, South Africa and India, took place in the Kyoto Protocol around 10 years ago. This was a convention which first took place in 1997, in which many countries met in Kyoto, Japan, to discuss greenhouse gas emissions. However, it took 10 years to persuade these countries to become involved in the plans.
The Kyoto Protocol allowed countries to use as many emissions as they would like on the basis that they promoted eco-friendly living and reduced greenhouse gases in the following years. The Kyoto Protocol was successful in cutting greenhouse gas emissions, and in the following years, China began implementing plans to reduce their emissions as they began to realize the toll climate change was taking on the nation.
Oh, so maybe China have cut down their emissions.
Wait a minute. In the last 4 years, China's emissions have been higher than ever.
What are your current plans?
Well, what about the beliefs of China's expert community? A group of organizations that explore different perspectives and aspects of climate change, including physical and social issues. This community provides explanations and studies on relationships between humans, nature, natural disasters, and climate change, which is then shared and discussed with the government to construct a position and strategy on climate change. China believes that the idea of climate change caused by humans is an uncertainty, but is still reliable in predicting the climate.
Go on.
What about how policies regarding climate change are formed, and the organizations that take place in the process of it? China takes economic issues into concern when formulating policies around climate change. The government is actively creating more policies and regulations that are climate friendly, with an emphasis on renewable energy. However, according to environmental lawyer Wang Taifeng, as little as 10% of the policies and regulations are actually being enforced, indicating that both the people and law enforcement are at fault here. Chinese society is gradually shifting view on climate change as a more important and pressing issue, ranked among the top concerns for the country. A poll revealed that 62% of the Chinese population believe that emissions should be reduced to as much as other countries' emissions.
Damn, alright. What else?
How about a discussion of climate change from the perspective of Chinese residents? Increased cases of cardiovascular and respiratory diseases are a result of extreme temperatures and climates caused by climate change. According to several sources, there is little amount of study done on the link between climate change and the mortality rate of the population, indicating that the government has not put much focus into this area, with the suggestion that it should be another factor taken into heavy consideration to push for a solution to climate change.
Okay then.
What?
Okay then, we're convinced.
You guys know what you're doing.
Obviously.
Look, you've done a lot wrong.
Like, a lot.
But we're convinced you...
Being China.
Are making the right choices and doing what you can do to both support your people
and look after your country's health.
Yay!
Chocky root for anyone?